this is going to be a good field session by the end of it, because I know the potential of the water economy, and we'll hear from others. I'll introduce my next guest. Dr. Salman Shah was Pakistan Finance Minister from 2004 to 2008, which saw an extensive development in the economic area. He was a member of the numerous committees at major international institutions such as State Bank, the SECP, and NIBAF. As finance minister, he negotiated with the international financial institutions, investment banks, and foreign investment houses. He has a PhD in finance from Indiana University, USA, and also taught at the University of Toronto, Indiana University, and University of Michigan. Of course, we know Salman as a very active member of a think tank, and he has been a moving spirit behind our initiative on water economy. So I'll invite Salman to come and share his thoughts with us on the water economy.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Zahir. These sessions today have been really very invigorating, and in the morning we heard from David Gray, who has come back to Pakistan after a long period, and his work on the river systems all over the world, I think is really an eye-opener for us, that our river system is perhaps the oldest irrigation and civilization system in the world, and we have ignored it for such a long time. So my presentation, if we can get it on, is inspired by Joe Briscoe's economy, Pakistan's water economy running dry, and also David Gray's lots of writings about how the water infrastructure is basically the catalyst for the most economies of the world, including the most developed economies of the world. So this is basically the most important resource of Pakistan is water and people and land. And this resource, can we use this resource to create a competitive advantage for the Pakistan's economy and to generate growth and employment and prosperity for the masses. And this report in 2005, I think it is still very relevant today. And I think more Pakistanis should be reading this, particularly at the decision-making level. And we should have a copy of this in WAPDA's chairman's office and in the Ministry of Water and Power, and the cabinet members each should have a copy of this report. I would quickly, when this was done in 2005, we had a plan for the water economy, and it was quite a comprehensive plan which was approved by the cabinet, and it included 5 dams which were supposed to be built, starting with Demer Bhasha. And of course, the progress since then has not really been very effective. So this is the system which we have in Pakistan. It's the largest contiguous irrigation system in the world, but we seem to be underutilizing its potential by a huge margin. So in the first 50s to 70s, we were working on the dams, the 2 dams which were built, and the irrigation system, along with the agricultural developments were taking place. And this was a period of great development. But then it started to falter, particularly in the 90s. We didn't make any progress. This was the stagnation period. Then in 2000 to 2010, we started to at least repair the old system. The Sakhar barrage was repaired, some of the canals were repaired. And now in this last 2010 to 2017, as Chairman Wabda was also showing, that we have started working on some additional projects on the Indus and the Tarbela extension, the Dasu, and now we are also talking about the private sector investment in the system through the IPPs mode. This is the old Indus Water Treaty, which basically was diverting the water to these rivers which were going to India, and that work was done by WAPDA within budget, on time, and I think it was a great achievement by a great organization at that time, and we have allowed it to run down since then. As the chairman was pointing out, we get about 140 to 150 million acre feet of water. About 70 to 75% of that water is diverted into the canal systems. And by the time it reaches the farm gate, it's only about 35 to 40% which reaches the farm. So there's a lot of losses on the way. And then the groundwater adds another 50 million acre feet, and we have, the farmer gets about 104 million acre feet. And for the 45 million acres of land, or 50 million acres of land, that comes to about 2.33 feet per acre on a net basis. But on a gross basis, we are actually using 3.88 feet per acre. So that's the kind of water usage which we are doing, and I'll show the comparisons with other places that with how well are we using this water. The land resource is about 196 million acres, out of which 77 million are suitable for agriculture. We are doing agriculture on about 54 million. Irrigated is only 44 million acres, and the potential to bring new land under irrigation is about 22 million acres. And here I quote David Gray that almost all developed countries have followed a broadly similar path of early and extensive investment in water resources, institutions, and infrastructure to achieve water security and underpin growth. And this is what is really what we need in Pakistan, the water security to underpin growth. Very large country, 200 million people, and we saw this morning it can reach 500 million in the next 100 years. So growth for us, the economic growth is very critical. What are all these people going to do? And this is something which we don't recognize in Pakistan. I think the importance of water is not recognized, and I'm glad to see Chairman Muzammal over here. He's very, very focused, and I think, I hope that he is successful in his aims of dam a decade. Maybe 2 dams a decade is what we really need. So I'll just look at some of the conclusions from the report, which I think is very, very relevant. I'll go through very quickly. They spell out 14 sobering facts for Pakistan, and you can read them very quickly. We are one of the most water-stressed countries in the world. David showed this morning. There is no additional water to be injected into the system. This is all we have. It's a single river system, so it's a high-risk water environment. Large-scale degradation of the resource base has already happened. Groundwater is now being over-exploited, and this was, if you can imagine, this is 10 years ago, this report, and still we are continuing to do that. Flooding and drainage problems are going to get worse, and we saw that in 2010 and subsequently. It's inadequate knowledge base, very weak institutions, governance, capacities, water planning capability has fallen into disrepair. It seemed nobody listened. David, when this report came, nobody was listening, and still we are not listening. Much of the water infrastructure is in poor repair. Quality of project implementation is poor, and you saw the chairman just saying that Karachi Canal, which should have been built in 2-3 years, took 10 years to build, 15, and Rainy Canal is disappeared somewhere in the process. Then the system is not financially sustainable, but some of the initiatives which have taken place indicates that we can put this whole system on a more commercial, sustainable basis than before. So, fact number 13, that Pakistan has to invest and invest soon in costly and contentious new large dams. And this was 12 years ago what it was said at that time. We are still struggling with it. So I think that the water storage, the report highlighted that in Pakistan, storage was one of the weaknesses of the system. We have only about 30 days of storage, whereas all major, particularly those rivers which are in arid areas, there you have 900, 500 days of storage. And basically the idea for Pakistan is very important because you not only have seasonal variations in the river supplies, you also have cyclical variations. So if you can store water, you can overcome some of these, you can definitely overcome the seasonal problems, but the cyclical problems, which you can at least store it for 2 to 3 years, the water, it will reduce the risk of the agriculture economy and the economy of Pakistan. Then the sobering fact number 13, that poor governance and low trust, and that is something which is the bane of our economy. Monopoly, discretion, accountability equals corruption. So this is the equation which mars most of our things, but in the water sector, it's particularly there. So the last one is that the water productivity is low, and large parts have good soil, everything is there, but productivity is exceedingly low, and that is what also the benefits which we actually get from the water are dissipated because of the productivity issues facing us. So in Pakistani agriculture, if you have only 35% of the river flow reaches the farms, 1 million acre feet of water generates about $500 million of output, and irrigated agriculture gets 2.33 feet per acre every year, or they use that much, and the agriculture GDP to the total GDP is 1:5. In comparison, in California, 1 million acre feet generates $2 billion of output. Irrigated agriculture needs only 1.5 feet per acre, and agriculture GDP to total GDP is 1:50. So you can see that our output, the whole idea that agriculture would be our backbone, it's an agrarian economy. We will generate the surpluses from agriculture and put it into non-agriculture or diversify our economy. That will not happen until you get your productivity to a scale that they can generate the surpluses for the urban economy. And if you look at that time, I remember when David Gray was here and there was a mission, we were talking a lot about the Murray-Darling river system. And this is a river system in Australia which has similar weather conditions and similar issues. This was a river system which was shared by 4 to 5 provinces or states in Australia, and they were always bickering about who gets what. And they were able to share this river under constitutional guarantees, and they have done very well. So the water efficiency compared to our 35%, it's 90%. 10% is used for the operations at the ports and the sea. And their farms up to 100 acres, they're allocated 2 feet per water per year. And if the farm is more than 100 acres, then anything above 100 acres gets 1.5 feet. So the water allocations have been very scientifically determined. The yields over there is around $2 billion, which approach basically the California's output. And there are extensive support systems for farmers for crop management and water efficiency. And most of their cropping pattern is horticulture and livestock. So they have really, we had some of our MNAs also visit Australia to look at this, and they were quite impressed by what's happening there. But unfortunately, we couldn't replicate what has been done by the Australians. So if we look at our 20 million acre feet, or 20 million acres of new land which we can bring underwater with this great resource, under our current efficiency we'll need 47 million acre feet, and at our current productivity it could yield around $23 billion into agriculture GDP. But if we did it like the Australians, even if we did it like half what the Australians have done, we'll only need 30 million acre feet, and it could add up to $30 billion in output. So if Pakistani agriculture output can be increased from $500 million per million acre feet of water to about $1 billion per million acre feet, that is the kind of jump you can, or the increments you can get in the agriculture economy. So on the existing farms, 45 million acres of land, if we can just improve the water efficiency to 2 feet per acre, we can save about 14 million acre feet of water. So that you can see that the scale is so large that if you have small improvements in productivity or efficiency of the water, you can save a lot. And of course, if the more you save, the better you are able to supply to other areas which are water deprived areas. Plus, maybe you can stop draining the underground aquifer, which is being depleted very rapidly. And if we can improve the productivity on the existing farms to just 50% of what Australia has done, we'll add about $40 billion to the economy every year. And this amount, by the way, is sufficient to pay for any projects which WAPDA or anybody could be using. So I've been told I have just 2 minutes. So one thing which I would like to show you is the relationship of poverty to the water and agriculture. So if you look at this map, on the right you see the irrigated areas of Pakistan and the agricultural areas, and on the left side you have the poverty incidence, and you can see that wherever there is water, there is less poverty. Even in the areas where you have green, that is perhaps the most prosperous, but yellow is middle level poverty, but red is the worst level. So you can see the connection, almost the connection between water availability and water productivity and agriculture productivity linked to poverty. So I think that this should be an eye-opener for the decision makers on how we are using this natural resource. And this is what Pakistan looks at night. And you can see wherever there is irrigation, there is light. And we know that wherever there is light, there is life, there is economic activity. And this picture is very patchy picture. There are big swathes of land which have no light and basically deprived of opportunities. And this shows Pakistan very clearly in the light intensity. And so all provinces have huge black holes. So Pakistan has at least, the black holes outnumber the lighted parts of Pakistan, and these black holes are the ones where we have abandoned the Pakistanis. This is I think, the biggest betrayal which we have done for the people of Pakistan. And you can see all of eastern Sindh. So there is a whole area which has fabulous potential but no water in eastern Sindh. In southern Punjab, you look at Bahawalpur and the area, the soft underbelly of Pakistan, because of lack of irrigation, we have left it in its pristine form and not touched it by human activity. And then there is a big black hole right up in Punjab and KPK. And of course, Balochistan is a huge black hole, where the water economy has not touched the lives of people over there. So I think this is, when we look at this picture and we look at what David Gray said, that all developed countries, they started off, the catalyst was the water economy. And this water economy had to in turn generate enough surpluses for maybe a non-agriculture economy, maybe the export economy. So Pakistan did not make that transition which most countries in East Asia and other places have made. Because when we look at Pakistan's exports, it's only 8% of GDP, and that is hardly an export-led economy. And then when you look at the imports of Pakistan, at least $4 to $5 billion of food imports are coming into the country, which again, when you look at Pakistan as an agrarian economy, and you are importing that kind of food, that means your agriculture productivity and your agriculture diversification into higher value added items, and from higher value added agriculture to agribusiness to other kind of business has not taken place. So I think basically the investments which we need, this was the Rainy Canal which we didn't complete, but only part of it is completed. And here you can see the impact, but the financing arrangements, if we can connect the agriculture, the water economy to agriculture in a commercially viable way, it is possible to fund all of this. And Neelam Jhelum was one project where we put a 10 paisa per unit surcharge on electricity bills of Pakistanis, and that generated $100 million every year for the project. And the 8-year lifespan, it gives us $800 million, and the rest is supplier's credit. So this model, and Neelam Jhelum was put in place as a company. So as a commercial company, you could raise the financing, and which I think is the direction in which we have to go in terms of the other large projects of WAPDA. So I think I've run out of time, so I'll quit over here. Thank you.